Welcome to the Right Club podcast, where the focus is on helping you, the real estate investor, advance to the next level. And now let's join this week's hosts and share ways for you to customize your life.
Changing strategies or pivoting, it probably is something many investors are doing now that have been in the market for a little bit. And you mentioned cash flow. I mean, I love cash flow, and it's obviously a little bit harder as the rates are increasing. What are some strategies that are still working in this market, or that you're seeing either your clients or yourself doing, that still produce some decent level of cash flow to begin with?
I think, it always starts with pivoting to the right markets, right? Not trying to force an investment somewhere just because it's in your backyard, right? So moving towards those markets where you don't need a crazy high rental income in order to generate a cash flow, things like that. And then, we're definitely seeing a ton of short-term rental, and we're seeing a ton of mid-term furnished rentals. This is one that I'm seeing a lot of investors pivot towards, but the Airbnb strategy as well as the medium-term rental strategy are definitely becoming the most popular. I think a lot more people would be doing more short-term rental if there wasn't that fear of all these municipalities kind of slowly turning against it one by one kind of thing. But definitely having something rented on the more short term seems to be the more popular play right now.
And what are the particular advantages of midterm rental versus short term then?
I think it's just that you can get a higher monthly rental income than you might if you were on a 12-month lease kind of thing. If you have someone who they just showed up to Canada, they're going to buy a house or they're going to get a long-term accommodation, but they need somewhere to stay for a few months without having to worry about getting furniture, plates, dishes, things like that. That can be a really good option, is depending on the city you're in, right? If your city has maybe an employer that has a lot of short-term contracts or seasonal contracts, or maybe you're in just a big city like Toronto where there's a lot of immigration, that type of strategy can work in a few different types of markets.
I love the midterm rental strategy. I'm pivoting a lot of my stuff to those. And then I'll tell you one of the things that I find makes sense as we're doing the BRRRR strategy still, but now it's, instead of 1 to 2 units, it's like 3 or 4 units or more. But again, things could change, but I'm taking the rent controlled units, and I'm like, I'm going to furnish those, put them on the Airbnb, whether it's short term or midterm, and be ready to pivot if short term becomes banned at some point. But the midterm opportunity, if you're in an area that has, homeowners nearby, you'll likely get a lot of people that are in between construction or houses. Often they are homeowners, or if you're close to a hospital, that helps a lot. But, the rent control piece, especially with the inflation and everything changing, next year we can only do 2.5%. We're capped at 2.5% regardless. So any rent controlled units that were existing before, November 15th of 2018, those are going to go on the midterm market for me. And then anything that's new, again, that could always change because our government always, tries to do things to make it harder for landlords along the way. Those I'd probably do long-term because you can increase to market rent each year. Thoughts on that?
Yeah. And I think, it makes a ton of sense, right? And you mentioned you're already projecting that you may have to pivot again in the future, right? And that's just the nature of any business, and real estate is a business, right? Just like every other type of business. Now, one really creative strategy, and one of my clients was talking to me about this. I can't say I've been doing this strategy personally, but this is just a statement to how creative some investors can get. So what he was doing is he was buying properties that had a zoning that could allow for hotel, and it was actually getting the hotel designation to get around the Airbnb bylaws, and was renting out his units on Expedia.ca and websites like that, right? So there's a lot of different creative ways you can approach this that are legal, that fit within the guidelines, so that even if the city says, you need an Airbnb license or something like that, you still can get onto a short-term rental strategy. It just might need a bit more creativity.
Genius.
That is creative.
I love it. Love it.
It's awesome.
Thanks for listening to the Right Club podcast, where the focus is on helping all levels of real estate investors advance to the next level and help you customize your life. Be sure to tune in next week at rightclub.com/podcast or wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you get a few seconds, please rate the podcast wherever you're listening. It helps the show get noticed by others like you, and we truly appreciate it. And don't forget to subscribe.